Hello everyone, my name is Gulfira. Welcome to my channel. I am currently 28 weeks pregnant with fraternal twin girls. Today I'm going to share my pregnancy journey as well as some complications that I have came across. So if you're interested in this type of content and you're also experiencing similar complications in your pregnancy, then please keep watching. So I am going to start from the beginning of my pregnancy. I found out I was pregnant when I was about 5 weeks pregnant, and I started to have some pink spotting. Then my GP suggested me to double check if everything is okay and just to confirm the date of my delivery. When I went to see the technician, she confirmed that everything was good and I have twin pregnancy. I was really shocked that I never imagined I would have twins in my life, because we don't have any twins either side of our family, and we thought this was just such a blessing from the beginning. Then she did mention that I do have a subchorionic hematoma, which is a bleeding from the membrane that surrounds the baby. So hence that's why I was experiencing some spotting from my early pregnancy. And at about week 9 of my pregnancy, I was driving to work that morning. I felt some little bit cramp in my lower abdomen, and I thought that it might be normal because as the baby grows, your uterus expand and you might have some sort of discomfort. So I just ignored it, and by the time I got to my work, I felt something really warm just coming out of me straight away. Then I rushed to the toilet just to double check if everything is okay. I saw blood just coming out of me, and I heard something dropped out of me as well to the toilet. When I looked at the toilet, there was 2 blood clots inside the toilet. Then I knew at that moment my babies were probably not with me anymore. I got out of the toilet, told my colleague to call an ambulance, take me to the hospital. Ambulance arrived, then I went to the hospital. So I spent almost a whole day in the hospital. My husband arrived shortly after I got to the hospital. We had to wait for the ultrasound. I went to do the ultrasound in the hospital. She didn't let my husband come in with me. It was just me and the technician. Because week 9 was still very early, she had to do an internal ultrasound to see everything clearly. We were just sitting there. I was watching the monitor. She was really quiet. Then after she did all the checks, she told me that both babies' heart rates are normal. She also compared my ultrasound result from week 6. Then she did tell me that my hematoma is growing a little bit bigger compared to last time. So the doctor told me I will be needing some rest just to monitor my symptoms. Then I can go back to my normal daily living. So I stayed at home for a few days. The bleeding did not stop, but it wasn't heavy. I was monitoring my symptoms at home. The doctor in the hospital suggested me to go see a special service in the public hospitals they provide for women who have complications that are under 12 weeks of pregnancy. So I made an appointment and I went there just to make sure everything is going all right. They suggested me to do another ultrasound, and in that ultrasound again, babies are doing really well, but my hemorrhage was growing even bigger from the previous ultrasound. So the only concern, the midwife explained to me that if the hemorrhage stays the same throughout the pregnancy, then it won't be anything worrying, or if the bleeding has stopped. But if the hemorrhage keeps growing to a certain point that is too big, it can eventually be a risk of miscarriage or any premature delivery or premature death. So she did tell me that I need to keep monitoring if I have any bleeding and the color of the bleeding, and just if anything happens then come back to the hospital. She made an appointment for me at about 14 weeks of gestation in the public hospital to see the specialist, the obstetricians there. Then I went back to see the doctors there. So the doctor suggested me to do a morphology scan at 19 to 20 weeks just to check up if the baby is growing well or not. My bleeding has stopped at week 14. So when we went to do our morphology scan at 19 week, everything was looking good. The technician told me that the hemorrhage has dissolved and she cannot see any hemorrhage, baby's growing well and everything looking good, and my cervix is in a normal length, which is usually about 3.5 centimeters, and everything was closed. So I was really happy to hear such a good news that I know that my baby's growing healthy. Unfortunately, at 23 weeks I had another routine ultrasound, and in that 23-week ultrasound, the technician started looking at from the belly. She told me that everything was good, baby's growing healthy, nothing is to be worried. Then she had to do an internal ultrasound to see my cervix, just to make sure my cervix is closed and in a normal length. So I remember she did not talk for 5 minutes. She was just very concentrating on watching the monitor, and she did not talk to me at all. Then the technician told me that I need to wait in this room until she comes back. She will have to go talk to the specialist in the imaging center and she'll get back to me. So she went out. After 5 minutes she came back. She told me that I need to drive myself to the hospital right now, and the people in the hospital explained to me what exactly is going on. I was at that point, my whole body was shaking and I knew something is going on. I had to drive myself to the hospital, which was about 40 minutes long drive, and all I remember in that 40 minutes is that I was just praying that everything is going to be fine, nothing's going to happen on the way to the hospital, because that's my biggest fear, that what am I going to do when something happens when I'm driving to the hospital. So eventually I got to the hospital. They suggested me to go to the birthing unit, and the midwife asked me to change my clothes to the gown, for the hospital gown, and she told me that I will be admitted today in the hospital. The doctors will come see me soon. And in that moment I realized, oh, something is going on. That sounded quite serious, and I don't know what's happening at that point. So I told my husband to come to the hospital. At that time 2 doctors came in and they told me that they will have to look at my cervix, because from the ultrasound that it showed, my cervix has shortened, and they just want to make sure that it's closed and they cannot see baby's head or anything inside. And I was really nervous at that time. They also did a test called fetal fibronectin test, which is a swab. They will swab and to see if there is this type of protein that can be found near the cervix. So if the result is positive, which means they find the protein near the cervix, and that indicates there's chance for you to have a premature delivery within the next 7 days. And if the result is negative, then that means the chance for you to have premature delivery is low, or you may not even give birth prematurely. So they left, and soon after they left, there was one specialist doctor came in. She told me she will have to do an ultrasound to see exactly what's going on, and then she will discuss with the consultant and tell me my options. So she took me to the ultrasound room. She did the ultrasound. She explained to me that I have something called incompetent cervix, which basically just means that the cervix is shortening. She discussed with the consultant. She came back and she told us a few options to me and my husband. She explained that the first thing we can do is to wait and see what's going to happen in the next 7 days, if I'm going to give birth or not. And the second option is non-invasive, just putting progesterone pessary just to see if that's going to help close the cervix a little bit more and see what's going to happen. And the third option is surgical intervention, to have a procedure called Cervical Cerclage. Basically, they will do a single stitch or more. In my case, I had 2 stitches done in my cervix. They will close that and keep your cervix closed. The doctor did warn me that there are some risks during this procedure, that I might have severe infection after the surgery, which is, any infection is not good for baby's development during this time, or they can accidentally or very easily to pop the membrane and they have to deliver the baby. And she also told me that there is not enough evidence or research that's been done with multiple pregnancy and how successful it is with multiple pregnancy that reduce the risk of premature birth. But she told me that for people who are carrying a single life, that there is a higher chance for them to reduce the risk of premature birth if they undergo the surgery. And she gave us maybe about 10 minutes to think about what we're going to do. And in the meantime, she told us there will be a specialist coming in again from NICU, which is a neonatal intensive care unit specialist. So she came in soon after and she explained to us the viability at that time and the risks and everything else. So because I was only 23 weeks and 3 days pregnant, she did tell me that if I happen to give birth right now, the viability for my babies to survive is really low, and even if they survived, the chance for them to develop all this disability is very, very high. And she told me that if something happens in the surgery that they have to deliver the babies, if they're born without regular heartbeat or oxygen, and I need to be the one that decide if the team has to resuscitate my babies or not. But she did tell me that even if we resuscitate them at 23 weeks, the chance for them to survive is still very, very low. So she did tell me that I need to be prepared to make decisions about whether or not to save them or not to save them. So as soon as I heard that, I was crying, crying in the room with my husband and the doctor, and just a lot of things were just like a flashcard came to my mind. Me and my husband discussed about what we have to do right now, and it's so much pressure in that time. You only have 10 minutes and you have to decide something so big that you can literally change someone else's life as well as our life. And I felt so much pressure in that time, but all I knew was I have to do something. I have to give my best to save them, and I knew that surgery will be the best way for me to decide, and that's what I wanted. And same as my husband, we both agreed, and we both acknowledged that if something happens that during the surgery, and if the babies decided to come out early, we just have to be prepared for that they might not survive. And just thinking about that is so crazy, and it's very crazy, and just makes you so anxious, and you realize in that moment how fragile life can be, and you make one decision and something can be changed for the rest of your life. But we decided to go for the surgery the next day. I had a surgery the next day. The doctor told me everything went well, and stayed in the hospital for about 4 days. And on the 4th day the specialist came in. She did an ultrasound again to see if the stitches were in place and whether or not if the babies are doing well. Everything was really good. She explained to me that they put 2 stitches in, and after the surgery they managed to keep the cervix at about 1.7 1.8 centimeters, which is really good. She told me I can be discharged on that day. She did mention that I will have to be on bed rest, and me that I can move around inside the house once I feel a lot better. And we went back to the follow-up appointment. Again, everything looked really good. Baby's going well. The cervix is still closed at 1.7 centimeter, and it was a relief for me. And now I am 28 weeks pregnant. We're just praying for them to stay inside for another 9 weeks until 37 weeks. If you are also experiencing this kind of complications, and if you also went through the surgery, please don't give up. Please don't blame yourself that thinking you're the one that's responsible for this to happen. There's a lot of things that is out of our control. I hope that this video can give you some courage and hope and positive vibe that you can do this and we can do it together and make it to the end. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.